Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. We're getting off the Bruce train tonight, though I'm sure he will come up, as he often does. And I have my new friend from Kansas City visiting with me. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so Jessica Disciacca, she just made sure that I asked her how to pronounce the last name, and then I was like, am I going to be a coward and not even try? So that's why I went back and did that.
Very impressed.
I'm going to start out with a question that was not on the agenda, but I'm curious your feelings. So the last time I was in Kansas City was a Bruce show,
Mhm.
and so Bruce was playing. And he opened with Kansas City. Okay. And
Mhm.
so everyone seemed to be thrilled and happy. And I and my buddy asked, are they ever whipped by that? So, as a resident of Kansas City, you are speaking for your whole community. Are you
Uh-huh.
guys happy that someone does Kansas City? Or do you roll your eyes and go, really? Do you have to go with that cliche? Jessica.
I think we're always up for any type of recognition for our city, whether it
Okay.
be the Chiefs, whether it be in a song. When we see movies or TV shows display our city, we're always proud and we're up there, the first ones cheering and be like, yep, that's my city. My husband and I do it when we're watching a movie and Kansas City pops up on one of the TV shows that we're watching, or we were watching a mob movie the other night and they mentioned Kansas City. We're like, hey, wait. So yeah, we're all about the Kansas City recognition. Doesn't matter how it comes, where it comes, as long as it's positive. We're known for our fan base with our sports and everything else. So yeah, we're totally there for that.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, it was fun. Bruce opened with Kansas City and the E Street Band did a great version and I was happy with it. But that's good to know. Very cool. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica. We'll get back
Thank
on
you.
topic now. Tell us a little about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am Kansas City born and bred. I am second generation Italian American. So my grandparents and great grandparents came from Sicily. So definitely proud of our roots as well. I am currently a art teacher in the Park Hill School District. So I actually went to school. I have a lot of degrees. Went to school for my bachelor's in fine arts at the Kansas City Art Institute, and then I went to Park University where I received my bachelor's in K through 12 education, English, communications, and business. And then recently over the summer, I finished up my master's in educational leadership as well. And I've always been I'm a huge nerd. I love D&D. We talked about LARPing, never done LARPing before, but
Yeah.
huge sci-fi fantasy nut, always have been. My dad bred that in us. My first remembrance is watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Star Wars, Star Trek. Definitely a Star Wars person over a Trekkie. Sorry, guys. But yeah, definitely love that. I've always been a creative mind of such. It's like the way I've coped with things and found life worth living out of the mundane ritual of Monday through Friday, back to back, 9 to 5 jobs. So yeah, just started writing when I was a teenager and became a pipe dream. It was something I added to my bucket list. And that's why I kept pursuing multiple degrees, trying to get that educational foundation that I needed in order to succeed in life. And then come January, I received finally an email from an agent that wanted to represent me and had a publishing house on hold and wanted to talk to me. And it just, everything's been moving as lightning fast ever since then. So it's been a crazy whirlwind for sure.
Good. We are going to get to the book. I'm really looking forward to talking about it. And first off, congratulations to your Chiefs. I feel a little bit of the Lamar Hunt before he passed would often come on the local sports station here in Dallas, and seemed to be a really good guy. And then his son has been on the local sports station at all since they started as the Texans and then moved. There's always been that connection. So I was very happy for you guys. And candidly, I was tired of all the crap that Taylor Swift was getting. So I'm like, I just hope they win. Just like
I know.
why are they giving her crap? You
I
know?
Yeah, poor thing. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a huge Swiftie. It's just not my musical taste. But I have
Right.
nothing against the girl. You know what I mean? She's out there supporting her boyfriend and she has like that. Somebody, I was listening to another podcast and they're like, you gotta stop and think how many new fans she's brought just this year because of her connection with Kelsey and the Chiefs and things
Yeah.
like that. And it's really boomed the industry. So why are all these people in sports giving her crap about them, all their, what's it called, jersey sales have gone up,
Yeah.
Merch sales have gone up, ticket prices went up. Every time Swiftie fans were buying tickets just to get a glance or a
Yeah.
glimpse at her in one of the boxes. So yeah, it is what it is. She was just there supporting her boyfriend. I mean,
Yeah.
he was still down there on the field doing all the hard work, putting in those hours. And honestly, like, our Chiefs blew it out of the water this year. They were not predicted to win, but there we go. That Mahomes magic, you can just never predict.
Yeah, that's just so good. I'm so happy for you guys. Yeah, sometimes we forget, and I say collectively as fans, as we're recording this, it's the first week of March. And last week, Sony, which is Bruce's record company, released that they were putting out a new greatest hits package, right?
Mm-hmm.
The very best of Bruce Springsteen or something like that. And there were a fair amount of fans on social media. Oh God, why do we need another one of these? And I was like, this isn't for us, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is not the market for people who own every album of Bruce has. This is
Mm-hmm.
for hopefully new fans,
Yeah.
people that may go in a Walmart or somewhere and go, oh, you know what? I should check out this guy, Bruce. So yeah, I think sometimes people can become very possessive of their fandom
Mm-hmm.
and not be as open to getting things. By the way, I always say I will pick Star Trek over Star Wars, though I love them both. Though I love them both. I
Yes.
think, but see, the reason why is one of my earliest memories is my dad watching Star Trek with me. I graduated high school in 77, so I remember watching the original Star Trek on when it first came out with my dad. So that has that connection. I love that you had Buffy and all these others with your father. That's cool.
Oh yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Yes, like he was yeah, he's definitely a jack of all trades. He loves, and it's so funny because he loves movies and musicals, and I ended up marrying a producer and director. So my husband does a lot of, he works for Strange Music Industry right now, which is Tech Nine's company. So he's involved in all of that and does all that. So he's a huge movie nut as well. But yeah, I grew up watching anything from West Side Story and listening to The Hills Are Alive, all of that, to Star
Yeah.
Wars, Star Trek, anything. Yeah, sci-fi fantasy was definitely something that I automatically fell in love with. It's still my go-to. I'm a girl. I'm a girly girl, I feel like, for the most part, but I would definitely pick something that's action-packed with magic and some elves or witches over a love story of such.
Yeah. I usually ask, and I'm still going to, growing up, what kind of music did your family listen to?
Mm-hmm.
But since you've always wanted to be a writer and in this artistic bent, were you from a family of readers? So that's a two-part question, music
Mm-hmm.
and family of reading. There we go.
Sure. So yeah, we'll take it apart. Heading to the point of the reading, I'll take that one first. Actually, no. My mom and dad, I remember I come from a split family, but even when when I was growing up, they were still really good friends. And so it made a very comfortable arrangement with me and my sister. But I remember them loving Anne Rice, and she was definitely one of my first authors. And it's hilarious because I should not have been reading her books at that young of an age. But I snuck them and read them. She's very, yes, something's up there with her brain. But anyways,
Yeah.
moving on. Yeah, so I remember them reading that. Other than that, no. I actually hated reading until fourth grade. I moved into a new school and I was more focused on being popular than anything else because my past schools I had been with, it just wasn't a thing. And as an elementary school kid, that's very important to you. And my parents in October went to my parent teacher conference, and my teacher was like, hey, we've had this reading opportunity of each student reads 50 books. They get to go to Warrensburg at the college, and they get to go to this author festival in November. And it was a month away. And my parents look at me and are like, why haven't you signed up for this? And I'm like, I don't like to read and I don't care. I don't want to go. And they're like, you're going to do it. So the next month, depending on which parent's house I was at, I was locked in a room with books. So it was like Beauty and the Beast on steroids. It totally was. So locked, and I read 50 books in less than a month, and that whatever. And it's like that quote where if you hate reading, you just haven't picked up the right book. And that was
Right.
totally for me. Like I remember reading I like some historical aspects sprinkled in. I love history. I love politics. Of course, we've been talking about the sci-fi fantasy. I'm definitely a fantasy girl. But yeah, I ended up picking up Lion the Witch and Wardrobe. Harry Potter came out, I think, when I was in second grade. That was one of the first. Picked up all that series, blew through that, and as a fourth grade reading level, I just that was it. That was it for me. So I watched movies and stuff like that, but books after that point, that was when my love for reading. And I'd rather do that. My husband's over here watching a movie. I'm sitting on the couch with a book. So yeah, no, not really. But me and my sister both are fanatics on reading. Like she has a book talk. We talk about all the time. We were literally just sending each other memes about 10 minutes ago. So it's definitely a love that we share. And my two daughters might have picked up with it already, just watching. And then from the music aspect, so I love everything, I would say, except for country. Not a huge country fan.
Okay.
And it's hilarious because the man that I married only listens to countries. He's
It's
drugged
a
me along
mixed
to like,
marriage. It's a mixed
yes,
marriage. It happens.
he's
Yes.
dragged me along to a lot of country concerts the past 4 years of my life. I don't know how I feel about that. I get a new pair of boots every time I go, though, so that's a plus. But
So first off, I love that you're getting new boots. Is there anyone that he's sort of converted you where you go, that was okay? And it's all
Jelly
right.
Roll.
He won't hear this. He won't hear this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
He's
he
not
will.
gonna know this. Yeah.
I like Jelly Roll, but it's hilarious
Okay.
because Jelly Roll was actually first started as a rapper. He was signed to Strange Music,
Yeah.
my husband's company. But I like his stuff. Certain songs I can like. He's converted my girls, which I'm like, okay, there's a loss there.
Mhm.
But yeah, but no, I can. Okay, let's put it this way. Before I started dating him, I cringed. I would automatically shut off the radio. Now I can listen through a song or
Okay.
two and make it through it without having to
Okay.
jump out the car window. But yeah, no, I grew up with my dad was in a band, an 80s hair metal band. So he played the piano. He was a singer. He was very musically inclined. So I grew up with Aerosmith, Bon Jovi on his side. My mom was Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, all of them. And then I also grew up in a house with classical music, and I loved big band. And big band, Benny Goodwin. I remember listening to him on the clarinet, and I actually picked up the clarinet and played that in high school because of that musical just connection that I had with that. And I love the roaring 20s to 40s. I love that era and the music that came out of it, the fashion, the lifestyle, all of that besides the war. So yeah, I loved all of that, kind of immersed myself in that. But yeah, music. I actually
Yeah.
want to pick up the piano and the violin still. So that's on my bucket list to do in life.
You've studied art. Was art always something with you? Did you always
Yes.
like being creative?
Oh yes. Yeah. So that's my and it's interesting because that's definitely my first outlet. I picked that up. That was my coping mechanism when my parents did go through a divorce because my parents and my grandparents went through a divorce at the same time. So I started picking up the VHS tapes of all the Disney movies and I started copying them. And it was a pivotal moment. I remember sitting in my dad's living room and he picked it up. He goes, "Did you trace this?" And I said, "No, I just copied it eye to hand." And he framed it. And at that point, I was like, "Oh, this feels good. I like this." So then from that point on, every Christmas, every birthday, he would buy me, go to Hobby Lobby and basically wipe out the store and buy me easels and pads and paints and pastels and color pencils and everything like that. And I really wanted to pursue that in life. The fact that artists don't make a lot of money, I was like, this isn't viable. So I turned to architecture. Guess what? I suck at math. So that wasn't going to work out very well. And then I just changed from there. I dabbled with journalism. I ended up getting all of my scholarships in law. I fell in love with debate. So I went through my first year was through a pre-law program through Park University. And then that kind of stopped me. And I realized, oh, I don't want to wait till I'm 35 to have a family and have my life start. I just don't want to do that. I just did my prerequisites, worked at Commerce Bank and became a manager there for a while. And then I was like, I am so unhappy. What makes me happy? And I fell back in love. I was like, art makes me happy. I've never stopped doing it. I've never stopped creating it. And then it just took off from there. And yeah, so I'm creating constantly, whether it be painting, drawing, ceramics was my emphasis for my fine arts degree on the pottery wheel, whether it be using my Cricut to make t-shirt designs, baking, anything of that sort, I'm always doing. But I will say that fine art niche, I have never felt more satisfied than I do writing, even with creating that physical art. Like that writing, when I finished my first book that's now being published, that sense of in love, I guess, that you are with your own craft, and that sense of accomplishment, I've never felt that in anything besides writing.
Okay, I have a really good friend named Tom Zoller who talked about from the moment he picked up a crayon, he knew that's what he wanted to do with his life. Yes, that's all he's ever wanted to do is make art. And by the way, his quote on his signature is, "Artists are just children who refuse to put down their crayons." Al Hitchfield. Very nice. So let's talk about it. You said you're doing your first book. Let's talk about the origin story. So why this is something that's been itching at you a while. It sounds based on what you're telling me. What was finally that road to Damascus moment where you went, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, like I said, it's so funny you even asked that question because I was literally just talking about this with my husband. Being a published author, and again, nowadays you can do it very easily through self-publishing.
Right.
That's an avenue that a lot of people are taking. And I have actually been to conferences with a lot of different authors that have said, hey, I make more
Yeah.
self-publishing than I do traditionally. So I'm not knocking that at all.
Personally understand you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get that.
but when I fell in love with writing, I was 16 years old and self-publishing wasn't a thing yet. The internet was still, it wasn't new, but that wasn't an option. And so the only way was to become a traditionally published author through one of the houses. And it was like that pipe dream that was like, oh, I want to be an actress. Oh, that's nice. Go find a real job. And if that happens, that's your wish, you wishful thinking. And that's where I categorize being an author. And as life went on, I wrote when I was younger, and then life happened. I got married, and then I had my two girls, and I ended up staying home with them and became a full-time mom and just lost myself in a way, I would say, just to the rigor of what is to be expected of a wife and a mother and things like that. And then COVID happened, and the girls and I's dad actually did split up during that time. But during that time, I did start writing. And my first book I wrote is a sci-fi fantasy, which I'm going to revisit. It's going to be a series, but it was like 318,000 words. And
Okay.
if you've ever done any research, and this was me just firing at the hip. Like, I got a story
Yeah.
in my head, let's get it out. And sci-fi, it takes a lot more effort than fantasy. Fantasy is already built. You already have your elves, your dwarves, your magic systems, your all this stuff. Okay. Sci-fi, you got to build the gun. Okay, well, makes the gun work? Okay, this crystal. Well, where do you get this crystal at? On this planet. Why is this planet so special? It is a whole just web.
Sure.
And that's why I do have mad respect for Star Trek and stuff like that, because or Dune, the second one just came out. I mad respect for that because that is completely world building. That takes
Right.
a heck of a lot of different brain power. So, anyways, I didn't do any research, wrote this 318,000 script manuscript, and started my idiotic brain started sending it out and querying it to different agents, and they're like, too long, absolutely not going to touch it. No. So I started researching. I'm like, oh, for a debut author, they only want 80,000 words max. And I'm like, I got 318,000. What am I supposed to do with this thing? Tried cutting it down. It just wasn't working. So I started writing like halfway through the second book, and I was just like, I got to restart. I got to refresh myself. So around April, and it was during COVID, I lived in Liberty, Missouri at the time, and they had this little coffee house that was still open to the public. And I literally went there from morning to closing time. And I wrote my first book that's being published now in a week. And I relate myself to Stephen King, where he says that he just doesn't stop writing until the characters get out of his head. And I remember reading even a quote from Anne Rice that said her main character, Lestat, she has to write about him constantly because he's constantly in her ear talking to him. And I thought it was like psychotic at the same time. But now being a writer and really getting into that world and loving it, I realized, yeah, that's what it is. You cannot stop because these characters are playing out in your head. I'm dreaming about it. If I'm not writing it, I'm flushing it through while I'm cooking dinner or doing laundry or going to work. And so yeah, I blew through that, wrote it in a week, and I made sure it fit all the criteria of what agents were looking for. And then COVID continued to happen. I ended up separating from my daughter's father, and so life just got in the way. I had to go back to work and to make sure they're taken care of, my first and foremost priority. And then in October of this year, I was like, you know what? I just graduated. I spent all this money on this other degree. Let's pick this hobby up again and let's see what goes with it. So I think in a matter of 2 weeks, I sent out about 200 query letters to agents. Deny. By November, I was like, screw it. I'm tired of being told no. I am going to go ahead and self-publish. So hired a graphic artist. I had my best friend she has an Edda Buddies podcast. So she's actually a editor. And so she edited my script for me, got the cover going. I was going to publish on Barnes and Noble and just do the self-publishing route. And then literally, I think it was like January 3rd, I got an Instagram message from an agent. It was like, hey, I have a publishing house and they're interested in you. Would you be interested in taking a meeting? And I was like, absolutely. And then a week later, after lawyers looked over the paperwork, I was signed for a 5-book series. And then a month later, I got signed for another book series as well that I wrote in January. It just came in my head. I'm finishing up the 3rd book and final book of that series now. So I actually have 2 series coming out a month apart from each other.
Wonderful, Jessica. That's great.
Thank
So
you.
what's the name of the first book?
Yes. So the first book is from the Darkest Throne series, and it's Awakening the Dark Throne.
Okay. And talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah. So this is definitely a dark fantasy. It does have some trigger warnings. It's an adult book. It's not a young adult book at all. So what I did actually was, this is, if you like A Court of Thorns and Roses or these Hollow Vows, any books like those, I would definitely recommend my book series to you. So it definitely is based off of the elves, I guess, genre. But I didn't take it from like the sparkly elves and fairies and things like that. I actually did a lot of research about Norse gods, and that is where the origin of the like elves and fairies came from. And they were not called elves, they were called Alfar. And that is actually what I refer to them in as my book is Alfar. And a lot of people don't know that. So I did a lot of research about Norse and Vikings and all that history, and I incorporated that into the book as far as how they fought against their enemies, their torture mechanisms, all of those things. So yeah, so the story basically follows your main female character, Genevieve. She's a half human, half elf, which is a death sentence in her world. You're not allowed to be mixed breeds. And grows up her whole entire life in the human realm, and the humans are the lowest of the totem pole. And she's basically taken in by this foster group of orphans, and the elves are on the other side of the border, and they live a more luxurious life. There's a light court and a dark court. The dark court's evil, light court's good, so they think. And so when her sister is actually captured by the dark court in the middle of a celebration, she sacrifices herself and offers herself up to the light court as a slave in order to get across the border to try to find her sister. So in this first book, she's going through all the feels about trying to hide her identity. If they find her and what she is, they're going to automatically kill her, because their laws state that any half-breed of any kind, of any race, is to be terminated before it's even born. So she ends up being selected as a concubine by the future king of the light court, and he ends up falling in love with her, and she thinks she loves him. She's never experienced this before, but she realizes that she's just using him at this point to survive. And during this time, she meets members of different courts, the fairies. I incorporated a lot of different mystical creatures in the book that you're going to invite, but also the dark court. And she starts realizing that things aren't as black and white as the light court would like to seem. And so she goes through a lot of emotional trauma. And during this time, her powers begin to trigger. And the light court have very specific powers. They're all very nature based. So anything with the elements, animals, things of that nature. The dark court, however, worships a different god. And so they get all these fun powers as far as mind reading, or one of the main characters, Arendril, he can basically look at you and inflict pain, something along those natures. And so she starts getting basically premonitions. And she's okay, light court doesn't have this, so this must mean I'm whoever my sire is, it's from the dark court. So she goes about, and there's an external battle as well that the light court and dark court are having to work together. There's rifts that are being spun out in the middle of the lands, and different creatures from all different worlds are coming in. And so this is where I had fun with it. So in this world, because it's not Earth, it's a whole planet altogether, but in this world, I've incorporated multiple religions, multiple deities and deities, and I've incorporated a lot of different monsters and creatures from Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Asian mythology. So you're going to see a lot of different things all incorporated as one, because these rifts are coming all over the universe. It's not just pinpointed to one. So that's the external threat that the light court and dark court are having to work together to fix, to make sure that at least their world stabilized and whatnot. So she's definitely plays a pivotal role in that, while figuring out who she is. She goes through a lot of physical trauma as well. So definitely check the trigger warnings if you're sensitive to those things. But after she makes it out alive, basically, it's a fight or flight situation. She realizes at the end a very key pivotal point of who she is and where she comes from. And it sets you up for the second book. And it makes you have all these questions now as to, okay, who's really the good guys and the bad guys, and how is she going to play into this, and how is she going to survive?
So Jessica, that sounds great. And I've already gone to Amazon and pre-ordered it while you were talking. So I went over there. So yeah, I will include the link in the show notes. So I'm going to have you put your business hat on. Mm-hmm. You're a new writer. How do you build a following besides joining nice people on podcast?
Yes. Social media. That is where it is at. And here's the funny thing. I'm not horribly old. Facebook is where I was at. I always would post things about my kids, my family. That's about it. Instagram, I had one, rarely would post. And it has been a whirlwind for me, because I work a full-time job. I'm a full-time mom. I have a bunch of other hats that I'm doing as well, trying to still pursue my degree or my career in education while being a housewife and everything like
Yeah.
that. So it's been January, February, March has been crazy for me. So yeah, social media, I had to dig right in. And somebody I actually really looked into was another author. She's Alex Astor. She's from the Light Lark series. She just had her
Okay.
Dark Bane, her second book come out. So she actually, and her story inspired me because she was denied by every publishing house. And she got on TikTok and she made a TikTok and she's like, hey, would you read this book? And she had a bunch of graphics that she created, little snippets from her books that kind of outline just a quick blurb of what her book was about. I think the whole reel is not even 20 seconds. And she just got this following and people like, I want to read that. Give it to me. Give it to me. And she ended up getting a book deal within that month. I think it was. I don't even think it was a month. And she ended up getting a movie deal as well. I haven't heard a lot about the movie deal, but she claims that she has received a movie deal. And I was like, this is the power. This is where we're at right now. It's not in the newspapers anymore, or the magazines or anything like that.
Sure.
It's Instagram and making those real connections with people. So I went deep diving on Instagram in January. I deleted my old Instagram account just because I didn't want my kids to be visible to strangers. Created a business account on Instagram, and I've been in Instagram jail. Currently, am right now. So, they want you to be communicative with everybody, and they're in
Yeah.
competition with TikTok, but they keep jailing you every 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I literally did a bunch of follow trains. I started following a bunch of my authors that I love, seeing what they were doing, trying to pick up on the trends. My publishing house was like, hey, try this. This is when you're supposed to post. This is how many times, because they're not the PR side. It was all up to me. And I started just making connections. And now I AI has been my friend. I've been doing a lot of graphics through there. I actually connected with a artist in Ukraine and she's doing fan art for me. So she's sending me over digital copies and sending me over the real copies through the mail. So making those connections to where I'm going to help her business, she's going to help mine. And then like last week or 2 weeks ago, I created a street team of people who have already arced my book. Basically, I pre-read my book through my publishing house and we're passionate about it. So I have about 37 people on my street team right now that are constantly making content. We have a PR folder my friend Stacey Hubbard has created. She's amazing. She actually owns a bookstore as well out here, and she's been helping me out so much with everything and kind of resharing content. And now I'm in the process of today I've done nothing but design logos and design t-shirt designs and swag and stickers, mugs, tumblers, anything that the book community is really like into. So I've been getting all of those resources together, push them out and be like, hey guys, what do you think about this? My street team's been super helpful with me about that. But yeah, just and then constant communication. I talk to people I don't know. I don't know what they look like, but I talk to some of these people multiple times a day because we have the same love and I'm also giving book recommendations as well and trying to connect those dots and just make myself accessible as much to them because I feel like some people are going to tell you there's a difference between you as a brand and your book as a brand. And my publishing house has actually already said that. They're like, we're selling your book, we're not selling you. I don't feel like there can be one without the other. I just can't, especially nowadays with social media and how accessible I am to other people. Yeah. And I know my favorite author, Sarah J. Maas, I love to see who she is in real life because her personality comes out through her writing and her books. And it makes that experience that much more genuine and real. And so, yeah, just making those connections, interacting with those people, learning your platforms and what works, what doesn't, all those things. So that's the marketing strategy I've been through. I've made a connection with a photographer, doing a lot of photo shoots as well to get that out there and market other things. I'm an ambassador for book swag with one of it's called the Spicy Book Club. Yeah, they've been sending me hoodies, working with them, just anything that I can do to promote other people. Because again, this, especially on social media right now, this isn't just about me. It's a community of book people who love book readers and love, especially in the fantasy realm. So it's definitely a community and you need to build yourself up, make yourself accessible to those people and also give them something that they're going to want to come back and fall in love with.
I want to ask you another question about characters, but before that, I'll tell you a story because you were talking about the character being in your head, right? I remember I was at a book signing years ago with one of my favorite writers, a guy named Lawrence Block, does mysteries. And in the book that had just been published, his main character, Matthew Scudder, was having an affair with someone, and his live-in girlfriend, Elaine, toward the end of the book says, I love you, and I know you love me, and you are giving me everything I could want. I could not want anything more from you. I need you to know that. Raised my hand and I said, Lawrence, it sounds like Elaine knows he's cheating on her, but she doesn't care. And to give more of it. Like she was a former sex worker, but different.
Mhm.
And I said that, and he looked at me and goes, I think that too. I'm not sure, but I think that's the case too. And I
Mhm.
love that, right? That he's not sure. He says, or maybe if she doesn't know specifically he's having an affair, she knows how slimy men can be. And so and I love that idea that, and one of my other favorite stories I tell all the time on the podcast is Isaac Asimov. Grew up loving Isaac Asimov as a science fiction guy. And in his autobiography, he talked about he was talking and talking about a story, and someone raised their hand and said, Dr. Asimov, that's not what the story's about. And he said, I wrote the story. I would think I know what the story's about. And his reader said, just because you wrote it, what makes you think you know what it's about? And Isaac in his autobiography said, I realized he was right because I know what I meant to write and what I meant it to be, but once you put it out there, your reader takes whatever they want. So all that to saying, was there a character that surprised you during this process of when you're writing your story? Was there a character that you went, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And I think again, this kind of goes into the writing process, and this differs. I will 100% say this differs from every author. And I have actually surprised myself in my writing strategic know it all how, because I'm very OCD. I'm type
Okay.
A personality.
Okay.
And with that being said, that means that I would have had this outline written out to the T. You're not diverting from the outline. It is going to play out how it is. That is not how I write. And it's amazing. And I think that is because, like you said, you're writing, it's not you. I will say in my main characters, I put a little bit of myself in each of them. And I think that's why it makes it a little bit more personal. Everyone struggles through something that I feel like I've struggled through or had to face or had to fight or something along those lines. But
and I think in a lot of ways, every character you'll hear writers say, all of them have a little bit of me, right?
Right. Especially when you're dealing with that fantasy world where you get to control the narrative completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this book here, I had one idea, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need something a little extra to make it more spicy. And so I created this. I'm going to say, I don't want to give it away, but I revived a character, and all of a sudden he has become one of my favorites, and he is a pivotal part in the rest of the story. My new series now, I will say it happened harder in this new series. I wrote book 1 in the second series that's coming out May 7th. It's Witches of Triora. So it's more of it's still fantasy paranormal, dark fantasy paranormal, but Witches of Triora, I wrote book 1. I thought I had the whole entire thing outlined. I wrote the first chapter of book 2, introduced a character, and I fell in love with that character so hard that completely rewrote I completely rewrote the whole entire outline for the rest of the book series. And I got halfway through book 2. I didn't like the way it was going. So I had to start all the way back over, reread, cut it apart, just completely destroy it to fix it. Because I'm like, this is not genuine. And that character, he's been a pain in my ass. I will say that. Okay. This character has been a pain in my ass because here's the thing. It's like your moral. I'm going to refer to art here. Okay. Surrealism art. Okay. If you know anything about surrealism art, it's art that is not supposed to come out of your head. It's something in your subconscious mind. It's like that weird crap that goes on in your head or you dream about where you're like, oh, that's bad. That's not morally acceptable. I'm going to not talk about that. Surrealism art, they paint it. So it's like this character in my head is my surrealistic character where he's doing morally great things and he's doing things where I'm like, I don't like that, but that's his character. That's what he would do and how it would play out. And it hurts me because I'm like, I feel like I'm the main character and it's kind of happening towards me and it hurts me, but I'm like, this is how it's going to play out. And he's going to have his redemption time. It all has to unfold. And so it's one of those things where you're writing it and you're cringing or you're crying or you're like, damn it, I don't want this to go this way. But in the end, it all works out. So yeah, definitely I would say that has a lot to play in because your characters as a writer, they come to life. There's that usually your main character is you in some fashion or form, but the rest of the outside protagonists and antagonists will definitely, you have to, because that's what gives the story spice is when it's not, you don't want to write a story with 15 characters that all resemble the same qualities. You don't want that. You want that morally gray character. You want that overly good character. You want that character that annoys the shit out of you, and you want that other character. You're like, why did you kill him off? I'm very realistic in that retrospect as well with characters. Like my fan base, I had my best friend read the second book of Awakening the Dark Throne last week, and she's still mad at me because you put me through an emotional hellstorm, and I'm like, well, realistically, okay, everybody's not going to come out alive. It's just the way it is. Like in this world, you know what I mean? I don't. That's young adult. That ain't adult.
Yeah. I love this journey of yours and the exciting of it. What's next for you, Jessica? Obviously, you've got the 2 series, and so you're early in your journey, but is there something in the back of your mind you go, wow, this is something I'd love to do?
Yes, I, at this point, like I told you in the beginning, this was my pipe dream. It wasn't supposed to ever take flight. And now that it has, and I definitely pin myself as a hard worker. And my dad always used to say this, anything you put your mind to, you can accomplish. And that's really been the case with me. And I don't want to sound like braggy or anything like that, but I've never given up, no matter how many times I've been told no, I just keep going for it. And this is definitely one of those testaments to that. Because I didn't, like, I realistically thought, I'm like, I'm just gonna have to self-publish and work a little harder to get it out there.
Sure.
But I'm still going forward with it. But futuristic plans, I actually last week got the calendar for my book series for the next 3 years of my life. So I know where that's going. I definitely I have another book series I want to start writing. I'm going to revisit that first sci-fi fantasy series and clean that up. And I really want to get that out there. And at this point, the sky's the limit. My next goal is to become a New York Times bestseller. After that, I want to start knocking down doors and getting this stuff made and getting a Netflix or HBO deal. So I want to go all the way. This is something that now that it's a reality for me, I want this to be my life because this is what truly gives me joy. Not that teaching and stuff like that doesn't. That's absolutely another love of mine. I love children and being able to pour into the next generation. But I don't know. I feel like at some point, this is what I like. It's like that job that you could have that it's not a job. Sure. It's truly your vocation. And again, the joy that I have from this, I want this to be my everything and my all. So as soon as that, and that's not about the money, but as soon as I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet and live off of what I'm making and put my all into this, that's where my head's going.
Yeah. So let's go back to music for a little bit. When we talked, you gave us you gave me when we were exchanging, we found each other via Facebook. Once again, I'm old too. So you talked about you've got a multiple favorite musicians, but is there anyone you're specifically looking right now? And how much does music help you in your creative process?
Yeah. So I'll take that question first because I don't listen to music when I read, but I definitely listen to it when I write. There are sometimes where I'm in the middle of a scene and I'll have a playlist on randomly on Spotify. I love those random playlists. And one song will come on. I've never heard it before, but man, it hits that mood and it's just on repeat for the next hour until I finish that scene. Wow. So I have fallen down the creative fine arts hole of hell, I want to call it. I've danced, I do art, I've written, I currently write, I played music. I love it all. And music is one of those things where it doesn't need to have words. It just that rhythm that is really makes you feel inside. And it can change the way you look at a piece of art. It can change the way you read and comprehend written art. It can do all of these things to you on a chemical level that I feel like people don't understand. And a lot of times I'm an artist. I have my rock music blaring when I'm creating art. It just gets you in that mood. So right now we actually have Zed is Dead coming in town next weekend. So super excited about that. Go with some friends with that. But no, like I like Benson Boone has been one that came out like I only like that one song, Beautiful Things. I haven't fallen in love with a whole lot more of his stuff, but I love Bryce Savage, 2L8. And then my throwbacks are like Corella, Florence and the Machine, Fleetwood Mac. But then I always love, again, just going back to Aerosmith or playing Irises or Bon Jovi, something of those lines. So those are my kind of go-to as well. So it just depends on what mood I'm in from that day and what I'm trying to accomplish.
And then you have to put up with the country music when you guys are in the car together.
Only in his car. My car's not loud.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask, on road trips, do y'all take turns?
No, he usually drives, and I'm like, I just put my headphones in, I'm writing.
So he is welcome to join me, and we can give him we can give him equal time. So I will put a word in for Jason Isbell. I don't know if you've listened to any of his music. He was with the Drive-By Truckers. He's my latest musical obsession. Obviously, Bruce remains the purpose of the podcast, but Jason Isbell, Americana is what they call it. And you may like him because he's got a little bit of rock in him. Okay, that's good.
Definitely.
So what should I've asked you that I haven't, Jessica?
No, we covered a lot. I feel like with my rants,
No, you haven't ranted at all. You've been a
you don't think
great,
so?
great guest. No, great.
No, I would just say release date's coming out. I don't feel like we touched on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So Awakening the Dark Throne is going to be released April 2nd. Amazon's a little finicky with ordering. If you want the actual the hardback copy, that's going to be on Barnes and Noble. And a lot of those, you'll be able to see those ratings so far. Barnes and Noble, I have a 5-star rating. I'm on Goodreads. It's a 4.61 out of 5. So overall, it's rating pretty good so far. The next, I can't say the release date next for that next one, but then Witches of Tree Aura, that's another one. That's more modern. If you like, I guess if I would say if you like, I've heard my book be related to Game of Thrones meets ACOTAR, or A Court of Thorns and Roses meets Lord of the Rings. That's Awakening the Dark Throne. And then Witches of Tree Aura, that's more modern day. So it's happening. You know, and I did a lot. I love religion. I was forced to take a study in college about religion. I just did a religious study and I fell in love with all of them. I was raised non-denominational Christian and still believe in that definitely, but I'm just fascinated with the rest of the world and how they believe and how everything's intertwined because a lot of things from one religion transfers over. So with this Witches of True book, I definitely went down a deep dive of Wiccan religion, paganism, all those things. Everything's very accurate, including the city of Triora in Italy, which had a witch hunt. Basically, it was like there was Salem witch trials in the 1580s around that time frame. So they did that for 3 years. So I took pieces about that, about history, historical places, put that in that book. So if you like more modern day fantasy, that's definitely a book for you. And that's coming out May 7th.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so yes, I will include the link and you can send me all your social media stuff. I'll include link in the notes. Awakening the Dark Throne, as I said, it's available for pre-order both in Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Check it out. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And you are welcome anytime to promote your future books. So this has been a lot of fun. All right, but before I let you go, I end every podcast with the Mary question. So if you are Jessica's army, you are listening to this because you're awesome and supporting her dream and her books. Thank you for listening. Jay Armstrong, who, by the way, is also a writer. He used to be a high school English teacher. He's now retired. But when he was teaching, he would take the song Thunder Road by Bruce Springsteen, would print out the lyrics and give it to his students, and they would treat it as if it was a poem. They would go over the lyrics, they would talk about the themes, they would talk about compare it to other American poets like Robert Frost. And then at the end of the class, he would ask his students, does Mary get in the car? So Jessica, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I don't think she gets in the car.
All right, tell me why.
You know what? Here's my thing, and this may be just because I am a 21st century woman. Okay. His lyrics to me, they're trying too hard. It's like one of those situations where you're gonna look at him and be like, man, you really think you are the shit snizzle, and I can't give it to you because my pride's not allowing me to move forward with this decision at this point. So yeah, that's listening to even like the way when I was listening to the song, because I actually had never heard it before until you sent it to me. Even the way he sings it is very just almost condescending and narcissistic. And to me, I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe when the time frame was a little different when he wrote it, and women would have been like, oh, and like falling over him. But for me and who I am, I don't think she got in the car. It was current day.
What'd you think of the song?
I enjoyed it. I would have liked to. I think the lyrics he did a great job. There was a lot of different lyrics that he went through. He didn't just repeat the chorus over and over again. So I liked that sometimes. So I feel like you hear the chorus too many times. You're like, I need some more to that. Yeah. But overall, the way I feel like through his lyrics and the way that he performed, I was so impressed with the way that he performed it because you really heard his voice, not just his like physical voice, but like his voicing of what he was trying to project through that song.
50-50. Half people say yes, half people say no. So you are not alone. Yeah, no, we do not know. So a couple of funny stories. Melissa Etheridge was telling the story when she had first got big enough. VH1 wanted her to do a special, right? And they said, who do you want to be on your special? And she goes, I'd really like Bruce Springsteen. And they said, okay, let's see if we can get Bruce. And so Bruce said, yeah, I'll go on there. And you can Google this. You can do Marissa Etheridge Unplugged or Bruce Springsteen, Melissa Etheridge, Thunder Road. And she's telling the story. This was during the pandemic, that she said, this was so important to me because I love Bruce's music, and I was so in the closet that I would never sing Mary Climb In. I
Hmm.
couldn't admit that I would ask a woman. And so when Bruce agreed to be on there, she goes, the first thing Bruce said is, this doesn't have a chorus, does it? And she goes, no, it doesn't, Bruce. Shouldn't you know that? That's what reminded me of the story.
Yeah.
And if you watch the thing, every time they practice, when it's time to say, and Mary Climb In, Melissa didn't say it.
Oh,
And she goes, oh,
very
that's
interesting.
supposed to be my line. And so you can see it that on the performance, she says, and Mary Climb In. And if you look at Bruce, he smiles and does this. Yes, you got it.
Mm.
So yeah, this is great answer. Absolutely. I love it. And my wife always says, no, she called him ugly. He called her ugly. He says, you ain't a beauty. You
Right.
aren't
That's what I was
right.
thinking too at the beginning. I'm like, man, that's what gave me
F
like that
you.
narcissistic feel.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're gonna sit there and be like, I can basically do better. You ain't the best thing that's ever happened. But at
Yeah.
the same time, you're like, oh, all these men are in her wake and blah blah.
Yeah.
Okay, very contradicting. Like I'm just
Yeah.
in that retrospect, I need a black and white. You
Yeah.
either think you think I'm the best thing that ever happened to you or not. Like,
Yeah. I get it. Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. All right, Jessica, if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
yes. So right now I am on TikTok and Instagram. My Instagram handle is author Jessica Ann Disciacca. And I'm going by Jessica Ann Disciacca for everything. I'm just doing all three names. But that's the best way. I feel like with Instagram. My website should be up this week. And I am very excited because I'm getting my first edited manuscript back from Which is a Truer along with my book cover. So we will actually be having a book reveal as well. But yeah, Instagram is definitely the place to go to contact me. So please go ahead and visit there. And I hope to start connecting with people outside of the book realm as well. Anybody that's just involved in sci-fi fantasy, whether it be film, music, digital art, physical art, anything of that nature. I'm definitely open to working with anybody to help promote each other and build this community.
Jessica, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Of
And I'm excited about the book. Look forward to your welcome anytime you want to just talk. That'd be great. So,
Yeah.
listeners, go to the website, check it out. We're going to include the link and check her out on Instagram. Tell her you heard about it on Set Listing Bruce. Order the book and tell her what you're thinking. Jessica, thank you so much for your time. Listeners, be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon.